Hello and welcome to this edition of SarderTV. I'm Tracy Fitzpatrick. Joining us today is Jeff Tan, Vice President and Director of Posterscope, a division of the Dentsu Aegis Network. Jeff, a digital native, oversees strategy and innovation across multiple platforms. He has over 12 years of digital media experience in agencies from New York to London and Germany to Australia. When not connected to all things digital, you can catch Jeff in the kitchen cooking up gourmet meals or running marathons on the streets of New York. Jeff, thank you so much for connecting with us today.
Thanks for having me, Tracy.
So Jeff, tell us about your background and how it helped you to become Vice President of Posterscope.
So I'm originally from Australia, and funnily enough, I come from a music background and an engineering background, two areas which are completely different to advertising. I soon realized after graduating from university that I'm not a great engineer. I love advertising. I fell into advertising in the UK when I spent some time there and have not looked back. I worked for a variety of creative agencies and then got a great job at Dentsu Aegis Network, where I am now, back in the UK. From there, over the past few years, I moved back to Australia. I set up iProspect in Melbourne. So iProspect is a digital performance agency, part of the same company. And then recently moved over to the US a couple of years ago. It's been a fantastic transition. I love the US, I love the people, I love the energy and enthusiasm and the excitement, and to me it's the centre of the advertising industry. A couple of years ago as well, I recently completed an MBA, which was great to formalise a lot of the passion for learning which I have. And from there, a series of steps to land me the gig which I have now at Posterscope.
So explain to our audience, what is the mission of Posterscope, and talk a little bit about what Posterscope does, because it's not your traditional advertising agency.
Okay. Posterscope is a full-service digital out-of-home location marketing agency. So we focus on creative solutions for out-of-home, data solutions for out-of-home, and media solutions as well. So out-of-home out-of-home location marketing is all-encompassing. Every time that you leave your house to catch the train to work or hop on the freeway to get to your office, you will be exposed to out-of-home advertising, whether they are billboards or whether they be ads on the subway or on the train platform, or whether you're on your mobile, which is also out-of-home location marketing as well. So we work with some of the biggest brands in the US and globally, including General Motors, Disney, Adidas, Red Bull, MasterCard, Mondelez, Microsoft, Fox, who we recently won as well. And our ads are basically, if you've driven down a highway or if you've walked through the city, you definitely would have been exposed to some work that we have done.
Okay, can you share with us one of your campaigns with Posterscope?
Yeah, absolutely. So last summer, we ran a campaign for Coca Cola. And we were very proud of this campaign because it's really signified a lot of the direction of where the agency is going and where the industry is going as well. So by that I mean we focus a lot on creative as well as data and digital and converge all of that together in an out-of-home campaign. So this campaign we did for Coca Cola is an evolution of the hugely popular Share a Coke campaign. So we were trying to target Gen Zs who are notoriously very difficult to communicate with.
Quick question, share with our audience who exactly is Gen Z, for those that aren't familiar with the term Gen Z.
Sure. So I would say a Gen Z is anyone that's come of age from the year 2000 onwards. So they've grown up with digital. They've grown up with smartphones. They're very, very familiar with social media. They're very, very tech savvy. So in this day and age, they will be mid to late teens, as well as their early 20s. So they're in college now, they're starting to get some part-time jobs, and they're starting to have a little bit of disposable income. And these guys are going to be the biggest force for change as consumers as they come of age. They're going to be expecting more from advertisers. They're going to be expecting brands to be authentic, and they're going to be expecting brands to understand them and communicate to them, with them, in a way that they're familiar with. So this campaign for Coca Cola, we knew that Gen Zs, not only are they socially savvy and very mobile and tech savvy, but they also crave their 15 seconds of fame. They want to be well known. In the era of YouTube and Snapchat, they want to create content which they can share with their friends and they can post on social media. So we created a campaign which we called What's in a Name Times Square. And we wanted to celebrate the meaning, the stories, and the things that you didn't know behind each of every one of our unique names. So we partnered with Google, and we partnered with Twitter and a couple of our agencies within Dentsu Aegis Network, including ICUC and also Clear Channel, the media owner. And we created a socially engaged digital billboard in the middle of Times Square. So users could tweet in their name plus a hashtag to then see a personalized story about their name broadcast on a digital billboard in Times Square. And that personalized story about their name would be the fun facts and the things you didn't know. All of that was mined by Google data and was powered by historical Google search data. So it's a really nice example of creativity, data, technology, and social media all coming together to create a campaign tailored at Gen Zs. And the campaign was a huge success. People were taking selfies. We had a camera set up on an opposite billboard which would take a photo of that personalized billboard and tweet it back to the consumer, and it was a really great success.
Did you have any role models growing up?
So my biggest role model when I was growing up would have been my sister Jo. Unfortunately, Jo's not here with us today. She passed away 8 years ago. But when we were growing up, we grew up on the streets of Sydney in Australia in a really rough working class neighbourhood. And my sister Jo, she taught me to be able to think quickly. She taught me to be able to read people quickly and to also be able to talk myself out of any difficult situations. She was also one of the most likeable, nice people you would ever meet, and she taught me that you can actually get ahead by being nice to people and by respecting people, and that will pay off later on.
With the convergence of technology in our lives, is your personal life a reflection of your business life, and do you ever just feel the need to disconnect totally?
Absolutely. So when I first started out in advertising more than about 12 years ago, one of my mentors said to me, he said, "Jeff, when you start out in this game, your personal life and your business life," almost this exact question, "are going to be intertwined. Okay, don't fight that. The friends that you make, the lifestyle that you have, the experiences that you have are essentially going to be very similar. So just be yourself and also be professional as well." And as for the need to disconnect, absolutely. So I live a very fast-paced, frantic, hectic life, cramming as much in there as possible. I'm on multiple devices all the time, always reading, always learning, always constantly communicating with people. So a couple of times a year, I just need that time to myself. I love the outdoors, I love hiking, I love camping, and I just love getting back to nature as well, so I need that time to reconnect.
So what are your thoughts on the Mad Men era of advertising, and has the creative process really changed that much?
Firstly, I don't yearn for the era of the Mad Men days. I think back then there was a lack of diversity of thought. And fast forward to today, we have a lot of diversity of character, of people of different backgrounds, cultures, people from all around the world working in the advertising industry. And that allows diversity of ideas. That allows people to build upon each other's ideas as well. However, I think there's three key lessons that we can learn from the Mad Men era. So the first is, back then I really felt that agencies understood their brands completely back to front and inside out. They consumed their clients' products. They lived, they breathed their clients' brands. They really understood their culture and their values. And I think agencies and advertising professionals today have a lot to learn from that. In the age of Google, it can be quite easy to become lazy in truly understanding your client's brand and their customers. That's the first thing. The second thing, I think back then, agencies knew how to lead clients and predict the future. Now, often if you ask a client what they want, they will tell you what they think they want. But you need to be able to predict the future and understand what they need and be able to guide them and be a consultant and help them navigate sometimes very complicated waters. And thirdly, where I think agencies today can really learn from our counterparts from the era back then is in passion. Okay, what I love about Mad Men is the people there just were passionate about what they did. They were enthusiastic, and today I really believe that to be successful in this industry and to really get ahead, you need to love what you do, because if you're not enthusiastic and passionate and live for what you do, don't bother coming into work.
Has social media and this 24/7 promotional landscape environment paved the way for companies like a Posterscope?
Social media today drives our culture, let's face it. We're always connected. And it provides, I believe, a real barometer of the public sentiment at any one time. And smart agencies will be able to tap into that. For example, it's very tactically, they can use real-time social sentiment to inform their advertising campaigns. So we work a lot with digital out-of-home creative, dynamic out-of-home creative. So we've run campaigns where we are literally taking whatever's happening in the social media environments and then changing our ad creative on the fly. So whether that means using that to inform creative copy in real time or literally broadcasting moderated tweets on billboards, it really does impact the advertising campaigns of today.
What does the future look like for brand marketers and their relationship with stakeholders?
The future for brand marketers is very, very exciting. So we live in probably the greatest era of advertising, and the potential is absolutely there. So I think brand marketers of the future need to look at two things. So the first thing is they need to harness the power of technology, and that's a given. So with all these amazing digital technologies, with all this data that is out there, with all this opportunity to have target personalized advertising at people, that is absolutely important. However, it is not the only thing which brand marketers need to be aware of. They need to not only harness the power of technology, number one, but they need to combine that with, let's say, brand building 101. Everything that brands have done for the last 100 years, which includes truly understanding their customer, building very rich and engaging content, but above all, just being authentic. So you cannot neglect the brand building 101, because if you do that, then consumers are not going to take your brand seriously. So you need a combination of the technology as well as the back to basics for having a great brand and developing good content.
And how has mobile changed your business model?
Mobile is changing the advertising landscape in a big way. Now, firstly, when we talk about mobile, I want us to define this clearly. A lot of brands, a lot of people think, when I think of mobile and advertising, they just think of those tiny little banner ads that you see on your phone, which is sometimes a nuisance, sometimes they get in the way, sometimes you accidentally click on them, they pop up. It's not a great user experience. Now, agencies should think of mobile as an audience platform. It's not a channel, it's a platform. Everything that you do in your life today, almost everything, is essentially influenced or changed by your smartphone. Smartphones have only been in mainstream for, 8 years or so, but think about how much they've changed our lives. From the way that we search for information, to the way that we communicate and send messages, to the way that we can talk to people across the world on our mobiles, to the way that we date, to look for restaurants, etc., etc. It's completely influenced our lives. So smart marketers will understand that using mobile as an audience platform rather than just thinking of it as a channel, using it as an audience platform is the way to get ahead. And everything that a content producer should create should be mobile first.
So Jeff, you've created so many award-winning campaigns. Tell us a little bit about your strategy for Chevrolet.
For the Chevrolet Malibu campaign, which we launched earlier in 2016, this was a really special campaign for us, and we are so proud of this. It's a vehicle recognition campaign, and it is the first to market in the US here. So I mentioned earlier that all campaigns should start off with an insight. And the insight that we had is that consumers, firstly, were getting turned off by the just sheer abundance of advertising and a lack of perceived differentiation in the mid-sized car market. And we also knew that consumers respond really well when they have advertising which is personalized and tailored to them. It's dynamic, it's real-time ads. So we created a vehicle recognition campaign. We partnered with our friends at Lamar Outdoor and created a campaign which used special machine learning objects detection cameras which could hone in on the front grille of a car driving down the highway. So we installed cameras in key locations in Dallas, Chicago, and New Jersey. And these cameras would train in on the front grille of an oncoming car, which is kind of like a unique ID. It's like your thumbprint. Okay? And 1,000 feet down the road, we will show a special message tailored to that vehicle if it was one of the 4 competitors of a Chevrolet Malibu. So for example, if we detected that a Nissan Altima was driving down the highway, we would show a message comparing the safety features of the Chevrolet Malibu compared to the Nissan Altima. Or if we noticed that a Camry was driving down the road, we will show a message talking about the fuel efficiency of the Malibu versus the Camry. And it was such an amazing campaign. It picked up a lot of media buzz. We were able to survey and interview a lot of the drivers afterward using some measurement studies, and the drivers found the billboards relevant, surprising, and yeah, it was just a great campaign all around.
Now, can you present us with another case study from one of your awards?
We launched a campaign in August for another General Motors brand, GMC. This campaign is really, really exciting. It's the world's first audience detection campaign linked to a dynamic digital display. So the way that this campaign works is we have installed special cameras in 8 digital boards in Santa Monica Place. Okay? And these special digital cameras can recognize age, gender, facial expressions, distance from the screen, whether someone's wearing glasses, whether someone's holding a selfie stick. So there are so many different parameters that we can actually now identify. And we've got some amazing creative agency, Leo Burnett, designed 30 different scenarios, videos. They're actually quite funny, videos of tailored, so responsive videos based on whoever is in front. So for example, if nobody is standing in front of a screen, there will be a video playing with just the GMC Acadia in the background with the character Jack, who walks back and forth and he's trying to grab your attention. He's knocking on the screen, he's waving at you, he's trying to get you to come closer. If a man walks in front and stops and stares at the screen, Jack will actually communicate a message to the man. He would say, do you like what you see? Or if there was a lady, he would say, hi lady, do you like what you see? And be a little bit flirty. If there was a family in front of the screen, he would say, oh, so you brought the kids, you need plenty of room, lucky the GMC Acadia has that. Really responsive, really tailored videos, seemingly in real time, tailored to that audience. So we're very, very proud of this. It's never been done before globally. And I think it really ties into what I mentioned earlier. The future of advertising is going to be real time. The future of advertising is going to be data-driven and tech-based, but you still need that rich, compelling creative. You need to marry the two together.
And what do you see as the biggest future challenge for digital location marketing agencies like a Posterscope? And do you think there's going to be oversaturation eventually?
So the biggest future challenge for any agency actually is firstly staying relevant and being able to constantly prove value to your clients. Because if you're not constantly proving value, then you're only as good as the last campaign you've ever done. So we need to ask ourselves, with the work that we're currently doing, if our clients went to pitch today, would the work that we've recently done be enough to retain the business? And if not, well, we need to step up. We're not being good enough. So that's the first thing, staying relevant. And I think the second thing, which is just as important, is being agile. Let's face it, the advertising industry is completely, and has been completely being disrupted, and it's only going to continue. The best agencies of the future will be agile. They'll be able to have flexible structures and leadership and talents and systems in place to ride that wave of change and to make sure that they can still stay relevant in the future. I believe that the role of an agency is going to shift to becoming much more consultancy based. Because let's face it, there are a ton of new technologies and data providers and media formats and media channels and opportunities to communicate with the consumer. But our role as an agency is to help navigate those waters and to help guide those waters. Now, that also means that our traditional competition as agencies will change. I'm seeing that a lot of, for example, consulting companies, traditional consulting companies, such as the Big Four, for example, are moving closer into our space. They're moving away from just providing a strategy and then letting a client do their own activation to now providing a strategy and activation packages all in one. Whereas, so they're really competing with our space here. And you can see that, so for example, earlier this year, Deloitte acquired Heat, a Chicago-based full-service agency who have a lot of respect in the industry. That's just one example of a traditional consulting company starting to encroach on our space. So what that means for us as media and advertising agencies is we need to up our game, because we are soon, well, we already are, starting to compete with some of the smartest minds in the business who come from a consulting background and understand the value of influence and how to guide a client down the right path. And so our competitive set is largely changing as well.
And how do you personally stay one step ahead of your competition? What's going through your mind all the time?
Staying ahead of the competition has to come down to one word, which is learning. Constant self-improvement, constant looking at courses, reading. I read a lot of books and I read a lot of articles every single week. I'm just churning through them and I love it. Okay, I love talking to people. I love networking with people. I love networking with people within the industry, out of the industry. I've got lots of friends from outside of advertising as well, and I love tapping their brains as to how would somebody in the finance industry or in the legal profession, how would they tackle an issue in their industry, and what can I learn from them? But at the same time, more specifically with the advertising world, we really need to think one step ahead, 2 steps ahead, 5 steps ahead. Where are the technology trends heading towards? Where are the big M&As which are happening in the industry? How can we stay one step ahead by literally being strategic in the traditional sense, in order to just, as I mentioned earlier, remain agile, which is the biggest word which I think any agency needs to focus on in order to stay relevant.
Okay, now within your company, do you encourage your employees to give back at all when they're coming up with ideas for campaigns?
Giving back in terms of creating ideas, absolutely. So one of our key values is around collaboration, and that's a good idea can come from any person, from any team, at any level. And we also encourage our employees to not only ideate, but also to challenge. Okay, but I want to emphasize there needs to be an emphasis on both. Often agencies can have a culture of being a devil's advocate, about pulling down one another's ideas, about critiquing but not offering any solutions. Now, I always say to agencies, we need to not be devil's advocates, but we need to be ideas advocates. We need to build upon each other's ideas. It's very, very easy to destroy. It's very difficult to create. It's very easy to pick holes on someone's idea. It's very difficult to actually build upon it, add value, merge different ideas from different, as I mentioned earlier, the diversity of thought here is absolutely crucial.
And talk about some of your successful pro bono campaigns as far as giving back.
So we've done a few pro bono campaigns. Admittedly, we can do a lot more, and the industry as a whole can do a lot more, but we encourage our employees to learn by giving back. We work with Movember, we work with Read to a Child, we've worked with Global Goals, and generally the way that we work with the non-profit sector is we'll take on a client and then we will go and negotiate free advertising space with all of our media owners. So for example, Global Goals, late last year we were able to negotiate a huge amount of free ad space for them in key locations such as Times Square and in Bryant Park, and so it's great exposure for these non-profits, and we're leading to a good cause as well.
What does the future look like for media owners?
So the future for media owners is similar to media agencies in that they still need to focus on audiences, they still need to focus on technology and helping build brands. However, admittedly, it is more difficult, in my opinion, for them to stay agile. And let's have a think about that. Media agencies and advertising agencies, their strength and their IP is in their people and their talent pipeline. And so as consultants, you can stay nimble and stay agile and stay one head of the competition. Now, a media owner by definition owns media, whether they are billboards or whether they're publications or whether they are websites. And sales teams, for example, are heavily incentivized to keep the status quo. Why would you change if we're already making a huge amount of money? Media owners do need to remain agile, but it's a balance. And I know that, for example, the print industry over the last couple of years, for example, Condé Nast, have done a great job of digitizing and completely changing their structure in order to ride the digital and the data economy. So the media owners of the future, they need to be data focused, they need to be tech enabled, they need to be audience focused rather than sites focused.
Currently, consumers are getting barraged by, what is the number, like 5,000 ads a day?
Yeah.
Do you think there's going to be a backlash? And what is the future of all of this? Where's it going to go in order for you all to grab consumers?
So there already is a backlash. 1 in 5 people would use an ad blocker, right? Which to me is saying that consumers are being fed up of being targeted with thousands of ads every single day. They're fed up with unpersonalized messaging, one-size-fits-all approach, just hounded over the head with banner ad after banner ad or billboard after billboard or television ad constantly. So this offers the advertising industry an opportunity to redefine and to reinvent ourselves. And when faced with an obstacle, such as ad blocking, for example, the industry needs to look back at itself and say, why are consumers flocking to ad blocking? ad blockers, for example? Is it because we're being unpersonalized and untargeted? We're annoying them. We're filling up websites with sometimes up to 100 different ads. We're not offering value to our consumers. Now let's go back to the days when for 25 cents you can buy the New York Times, right? There's a clear value exchange there. I give 25 cents to the New York Times, they give me a paper, and I consume that paper, and I've got the world of information at my fingertips. As we know, consumers today, the value exchange for them is, well, I want everything for free. I want my free content. I want to be able to talk to my family overseas for free. I want to be able to have free email and social media, etc. Right? And so the clear-cut value exchange is not as clear anymore for a consumer. Now, whenever something is for free, as a general rule, you are the product. The data that you leave behind on social media, the breadcrumbs that you're leaving behind as you navigate the free web are essentially data for advertisers to target consumers. So what advertisers need to do, going back to my earlier point, is they need to be smarter with their targeting, but you must make sure that you have rich content, compelling content, that you have an authentic brand. Otherwise, consumers are still going to continue to revolt. We need to treat consumers with respect, not load up pages with thousands of ads, not just target them whenever they're game, but make sure we're telling a compelling story with an authentic voice.
So tell us about one of your greatest strategic challenges and how you were able to overcome it.
So all of my career background has been in digital media, and it's only been in the last year and a half when I've stepped out into a traditional media, which is out-of-home location marketing. Now, coming from agencies such as iProspect, which is a very digital performance-based company, which is all about ROI, all about understanding the value of every single metric, every single consumer click or viewed impression, what was the world that I came from. So coming from this very performance-focused mindset to now an agency which is more traditional media mindset, in an environment which is more traditional media, was a really big challenge. And every day I'm having lots of conversations with the industry and colleagues about how we can change our industry and shape it to become more data-focused, more tech-focused, certainly more creative as well. And I mentioned earlier that Posterscope is a full-service, digital out-of-home location marketing agency specializing now in creative, in data, in tech, and in media. And so we need to constantly reinvent ourselves and, as I mentioned earlier, stay agile in order to continue to lead the competition.
So what makes your position Vice President of Strategy so vital to your company?
So I'm very fortunate to be able to oversee data, product innovation, and comms for my agency. So what this means is I have a heavy say in the products that we create, how we package it up, how we sell it, as well as how we evangelize it. So I would say that it's a key part to help our company's growth.
Are your colleagues comfortable challenging any of your ideas?
They are, and we're trying to create a collaborative environment, an ideas advocate environment, but at the same time, we welcome colleagues to challenge ideas of each other. The only caveat is, if you're going to challenge an idea, you also need to think of a solution as well, not just pull down someone's idea.
And how have you dealt with disruption in the advertising industry?
So the advertising industry is going through a huge period of disruption, and the out-of-home location marketing industry is also about to be hit with a huge period of disruption. And the way we're going about that is in 3 simple steps. So firstly, we need to build change from the grassroots level and up. We need to get people excited, but also a little bit fearful for change. That's technology and disruption is happening whether you like it or not. So either you're with us on the bus or you're not, okay? So we need to build momentum. We need to start celebrating every single win, and we need to start building that excitement for change. So that's step 1. Step 2 is we need to change our structure, our systems, our leadership, and our talents. Any agency going through a period of disruption needs to think very clearly, very long and hard about what is the right way to shape and design an agency to be able to stay ahead. And that usually comes with a strong signal to internally as well as externally that change is coming. Okay? And then step 3 is to just scale, just to grow momentum. I mentioned a culture of celebrating every win, celebrating every success. That is so important because momentum, I love that word, as you start gaining more momentum, more and more people see that, hey, this is happening. More and more people come on board. You attract the best minds in the business. Anybody who's not on board the bus can leave, and anybody who wants to be a part of something really exciting then starts joining. So that's those 3 steps. So building a desire for change, recreating a system, structure, talents and people in order to align to a vision. And then number 3 is just gaining momentum, just celebrating every win and getting bigger.
Tell us about some of the challenges of keeping huge brands, say a Disney, General Motors, or Microsoft, as clients.
One of the biggest challenges for an agency dealing with any large clients is, as I mentioned earlier, staying agile and being a consultant and adding value. That's definitely always going to be a given for any client. But in particular, say in a new business pitch, procurement is surprisingly a huge factor and a huge challenge in helping us to really spread our wings. So you could have the best ideas, you could have the best people on a pitch team, and you can have the greatest insights and strategy. But often it gets down to procurement, who sometimes find it very, very difficult to put a value on creativity, to put a value on ideas, to put a value on thoughts, which can shape a campaign. So the future of the industry, unfortunately, is becoming more and more commoditized, downward pressure on rates. Media is being commoditized and seen as less valuable. We're moving more towards automated trading. And in such an environment, the biggest challenge with a big client is doing more with less, with staying strategic with less resources. That often strategy is not as valued because it is harder to put a value on.
How do you balance the creative and technical aspects of your strategies with, say, a company like General Motors?
Technology is not an idea. Simply saying we need to be on Twitter is not an idea. Okay? So it's very easy to get caught up with the latest technology, with the latest case studies, and go, right, we need to do this for our brand, without actually thinking about why this is important. Often agencies jump to the how, but they don't think about the why. So any great campaign needs to have a couple of things. Firstly, it needs to have a strong consumer insight. Secondly, it needs to be backed by an enabling technology. So this is when we can start thinking about the array of technologies that are out there. Thirdly, it needs to have strong, compelling content, a reason to believe, a reason for a consumer to go and engage or consume or share that content. And finally, as I mentioned, a brand needs to be authentic. I want to talk about some recent, I'm going to call it a marketing campaign, which a lot of people wouldn't think about as a marketing campaign. So in the 2016 presidential election cycle, Bernie Sanders came from nowhere, seemingly, to do very, very well in the primaries. And I can argue that he actually ticked off a lot of those key areas which I mentioned. So let's have a look at that. So firstly, he has a really authentic voice, a really authentic brand which he has created, and his values very much resonated with the population, with the core message resonated with his supporters. The insights that he had and the platform that he rode on resonated with the hearts and minds of a grassroots movement. He leveraged social media, so the enabling technology that I mentioned. He leveraged that to its full capacity. He was able to solicit donations and get earned media or word of mouth media as well, to get people to spontaneously show up at thousands of people at rallies and then further spread the word. And his messaging, his brand, his creative may, in some opinions, not necessarily be the most compelling, but that's also aligning to his brand message, which is that grassroots, raw, energetic voice. So I think this is a very, very recent example of somebody that actually did tick off all of those key points that I mentioned.
So what does the future look like for the digital marketing industry?
So in the future, digital agencies will act much more as the role of consultants. They will guide their clients to help navigate the array of vast technologies, new data sources, new media owners, new social channels, and so we will be much more focused as consulting. Trading, so media buying, is mostly going to be automated, which can send shivers down the spines of, say, media agencies. And I mentioned a while ago that in 10 years' time, or even in 5 years' time, the job titles in our industry are going to look very, very different to the job titles of today. As an example, In today's landscape, we use the word digital a lot. You might be a digital strategist or you might be a digital buyer, but in the future that word digital will disappear because everything will be digital. The way that we buy out-of-home media is going to be all digitally traded. The way that we buy television will be digitally traded as well. Digital is going to be absolutely all-encompassing. For Dentsu Aegis Network, our vision is to be 2020 digital, 100% digital in the year 2020. And that involves digital media, digital trading platforms, digital partners coming on board. I also want to think about digital as more than just a media or a technology, but as a mindset. So digital means being accountable. Digital means scrutinizing results, focusing on return on investment, focusing on what value are we actually adding to consumers. So with the rise of ad blockers, for example, and with ad fraud prevalent in the digital industry, there is increased scrutiny on accountability and on measurability. And so in a traditional media sense, such as out-of-home or TV, we are facing increased pressure to prove that return on investment. Now, I personally think that's a great thing. I think the eras of just throwing up ads and hoping that people will view them and not really caring about results has come to an end completely. And we need to be, as an industry, much more accountable for what we do. I think in the future, content is going to be much more closely measured. The different effects of copy and rotating multivariate testing, split testing copy is much going to be the standard rather than the exception that it is now. The future of the digital industry is going to be the data economy. We're already seeing chief data scientists, chief data officers in everything from brands to agencies to media owners, and I think that's only going to increase. Big data is thrown around all the time, and I hate that word. I think everyone's just throwing it around and hoping to sound important, but the way that I always think is data is only important if you know how to access it and mine it and analyze it and draw insights out of it to inform your future strategies, to inform your creative, to inform the target audiences you want to speak to inform which media platforms you want to buy. So all in all, the future is looking really exciting. It's going to be tech focused. It's going to be data focused. We're going to be seen as consultants much, much more. And I mentioned earlier that we're going to be competing a lot more with the traditional consulting companies as well.
Jeff Tan, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much.
And that does it for this edition of SarderTV. We hope you enjoyed and learned something new today. Until next time, I'm Tracy Fitzpatrick. Thanks for watching.